Our next speaker for the BNI Conference 2024 in Bloemfontein in the Free State was a guy by the name of Julian Lewis. Julian is a mentor, he's a coach, he's a writer, and he's published books with people like Dr. Ivan Meisner and another guy that we know from the UK, but he's executive director in the UK. And yeah, let's listen to what Julian has to say and what he wants to teach us in his story. So with that, let's cue the BNI intro.
I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, why has he just played a 2-minute video? Is it because he hasn't got enough content? I played that video because it contains a story of inspiration, motivation, and knowledge. And music videos, music generally, but music videos in particular, tell us these stories. And that one resonates with BNI, of course, because we have a Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame for large chapters, a Hall of Fame for large launches. And anyone that's been in BNI long enough knows that in order to get into the Hall of Fame, you have to have dedication, motivation, and knowledge. And over the last couple of days, we've gained a lot of knowledge. We've gained a lot of inspiration. We're going to get more and more today as well. And we're motivated. Who's motivated right now? Already today, sponsor one. Going to do it. Grow the country by 10%. We're going to do it. Yeah, we're motivated. But there's a problem with inspiration and motivation. It can leave you. Because life kicks in, and when motivation and inspiration leave, you're left with knowledge. And there's also a problem with knowledge. And this is it. It's absolutely one of my favourite quotes right now. Absolutely my favourite quote, because you can't argue with it, can you? You can't argue with it, because the knowledge is out there. The knowledge is very much out there in BNI. There are people out there that have done what you want to do. There are countries out there that have grown by 10%. If knowledge was all we needed. So there's a secret sauce that we need, that some people find and others don't. And this is what I'm going to talk about. Now, my inspiration for the secret sauce, this year's secret sauce, if you like, is this. Desert Island Discs, which I'm told is very big in South Africa, right? No, apparently not. Okay. So, Desert Island Discs is a program on BBC Radio 4. It was first broadcast in 1942. So during the Second World War. And it's every week they interview somebody, not necessarily somebody famous, but somebody of note. Someone like Chris, maybe, they'd interview Chris. And the person they're interviewing is called a castaway, and they can introduce 8 songs, 1 luxury, and a book. It is about the songs, because the songs often illustrate someone's life, but it's also about the way that people talk about their life and what's important about the songs. And the songs are often really motivating songs, or they relate to a particular point in time. Because music can be really inspirational and motivational, yeah? I mean, I loved it standing at the back there with all the music earlier, all the music to get people in here. It lifts your energy, right? But music can do more than just that. And I first got listening to Desert Island Discs because of BNI, because they play a repeat of Desert Island Disc on BBC Radio 4 on a Friday at about 9:15. And that was when I was leading my chapter. So I'd listen in, and some of them were okay, and some of them, I didn't really know the people, I couldn't really relate, or maybe the music wasn't my thing. Some of them were amazing. But these days, I listen to Desert Island Discs via podcast. And they interview some amazing, incredible people, telling their story through music. And one of the people that I wanted to listen to was this gentleman, Noel Fitzpatrick. Now, is Noel Fitzpatrick known in South Africa? Some people, doesn't really matter whether it is. So Noel Fitzpatrick is known in the UK and the US as the super vet. So he's invented some of the most advanced, and he also did another program called the Bionic Vet, and he's invented some of the most advanced prosthetics for animals, and that has the potential to be translated also into humans. But sadly, there isn't such a thing as one medicine. And during his Desert Island Discs, it becomes really apparent with Noel that he loves his lyrics. Very focused on the lyrics of any particular song. And in this first clip I'm going to play you, Noel talks about the power of one and one medicine.
The lyrics of it are the thing, because one says, and he's very specific about this. He says, we're not the same. We get to carry each other. In this era of COVID, we have no choice but to help one another. It's not an obligation, it's a privilege, because love will indeed leave you if you don't care for it. And that's what it's about.
Me too, and one.
That's the host at the end there. After I did a similar presentation recently, someone came up to me afterwards and said, "You made me cry." And I said, "Oh, was it the little story I tell right at the end of this presentation?" And they said, "No, it's that track." And this is the power that music has on us. So powerful sometimes. And maybe for some of you, that track, very obviously well-known track, might have a meaning. And for others of you, you're like, who's that? Right? I mean, probably the most famous band in the world. But anyway, who's that? And I get that. That's fine. Because the whole idea of having a soundtrack to your life is very personal. Absolutely personal. I'm going to play another track now from Noel. And again, he introduces it. And he introduces it as to why he decided to be the super vet.
A skinny bloke in a white tracksuit with red stripes down it, with a crown on, came out of a puff of smoke to the ethereal opening of one vision. And that blew my mind. Because Freddie Mercury was able to translate emotion like nobody else I've ever seen, just by existing. And he wrote the greatest love song, well, in my life anyway, and it's called Love of My Life. And for me, it's all about unconditional love, because Freddie didn't think about really when he was writing this sexuality, because remember, he had a girl and a boy, and I never think that dogs and cats judge you. They don't care what sexuality you are, what color you are, what creed you are, what religion you are, what race you are. And in that moment in 1986, I thought, wow, that's it. And that's what I'm going to do with my life.
I deliberately play these tracks with no video because I want you to hear the power of the words. Because this is what Noel is really keyed into. And he says right at the end there, and that's when I knew that is what I'm going to do in my life. What are you going to do in your life? What motivates you? What inspires you? And it may well not be music. But we should all know what we're going to do with our lives and the legacy we're going to leave. By the way, Christo, thank you for the plug for the new book. Okay, so let's have a think about this. I want you to think about the soundtrack to your life. If there was a soundtrack to your life, and if you were to be invited onto Desert Island Discs, which 8 tracks would you choose? Now, often when I ask people to do this, the start of this is actually quite easy, because there are some tracks that you're just like, well, I've got to have that one. That's like the one. If anyone's wondering, my absolutely got to have that track was Madness's Baggy Trousers. It's a strong track. Don't laugh. It's a strong track. So in order to give you some motivation as to which tracks you might choose, I've randomly sampled 8 tracks. And they're on the cards in front of you, but don't worry about them just yet. The first one I randomly sampled, and this actually is a complete coincidence, but a very nice coincidence, is this one. So this is the track that Chris walked up to, right? I mean, he did milk it a little bit, didn't he? I mean, I loved it, absolutely loved it. Superb. And I've got the words here that Bon Jovi said, but Chris has already given you those. But what did Chris say? And the thing that really stood out for me is about living our life by our values. And here's the thing about music. Quite possibly, every time you hear that track now, you're going to think about that inspirational speech we just had from Chris there. And the videos that he played and the way that the stories he told. And even if that doesn't happen forever, it may well happen over the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12 months. And you'll be transported back here into this room on that particular track. The next track I want to talk about is this one. Why I had such a big smile on my face with that track. I love that track, by the way. The reason I put it in the deck was because my rugby team that I played for, the first team used to run out to this track. Actually, not right at the start, this part, but later on it does get really quite funky. However, and the other reason I was laughing, ever since I've got here, I realised that you guys talk about the weather more than we do. Hey? I thought that was our reputation, not yours. Unbelievable. Anyway, so the point I want to make here is, and we heard from Philip earlier, and it's absolutely true right across BNI because of what's happened in the world over the last few years, that 2024, 2025 is going to be our breakthrough year. We're starting to see that that will be our breakthrough year. Members across the world, members making more money. For those of you who are with me on that. And I've got another track for you, and these are just samples. These are like some idea and about the powerful music that's out there. By the way, Desert Island Disc, you don't have to have music. You can bring in, sometimes it's rare, but sometimes people will bring in poetry or other audio. So that could feature in your track if there's something that inspires you in that way. Next one I've got for you is this one. The thing about dreams is if you can dream it and you can believe it, you can go and get it. And lots of us in this room today, me included, never thought I would be here doing this. But there was a time when I'm like, I want to do that. And if that's your dream, go out and do that. So what is your dream? And maybe that track, if it made your Desert Island Discs, would inspire you to keep hold of your dream for as long as possible. This one's a little bit of fun and a little bit of a nod to your speaker last year and next year, we've just found out. My good friend. You want it more? I don't know why you didn't join me in the Greg dance. I really shouldn't have done that, got a bad knee. You know, this isn't a house of pain here, it's a house of game, right? However, sometimes music is not about the lyrics, because actually if you listen to the lyrics of that song, they're not actually that great. But what it is it conveys a feeling and an emotion, and it all gets us all in the right mood, in the right place, okay? Here's another one for you that you might choose. Very BNI relevant, this one. The reason why I include that is names are really important in BNI and in building relationships. And whilst some names, while I've been here, are a challenge, because they're names I'm just not used to, you know, those that have met me hopefully will have seen that I've tried to use people's names and connect, and I think this is a really important way in BNI that we can build relationships quicker. But also, there's a lyric in that song, "We are shining and we will never be afraid again." So it's a really great uplifting song that might make the soundtrack to your life. Feel like I like this one. I put this one in because in one of the early speeches that I did, this was my walk-on music. I don't use this walk-on music anymore, but this one and the lyrics of this song are just really quite special. If you had one shot, one opportunity, would you seize it? Would you capture it? Would you let it slip? Our legacy is made over a lifetime, but it can be influenced in a single moment. You're going to hear that quote again in the future. What about this track? Just because Christo spoke about it, the positivity that we can bring to people, and that's such a kind of feel-good, happy song about life. And I kind of defy you that if you get out of bed, you play that song first thing, that you're not going to get out of the house and start giving somebody the massive gift of a smile. We talk about it in infinite giving. Gifts aren't always like big or monetary or anything like that. If you can't give anyone anything else, just give them your smile. Make their day, make them feel more positive and happy. All right, so that's the soundtrack to your life. And you can create a soundtrack to the conference as well. I use different music playlists in various different ways. So you could create like a BNI soundtrack, what I listen to on my way to my BNI meeting. I've got a particular soundtrack that I use when I'm writing. So it doesn't contain tracks like that, because I'll just be sat there listening to them and not writing. So it contains, you know, a little bit of classical music, a little bit of different things. Now, the point of this talk is what motivates us to actually take action. And for some of you sitting here now, you're thinking, I quite like the music, Julian, but I'm never going to do that soundtrack thing. It's just not me. I'm not getting it. And I understand that. And I spoke yesterday about we're all a little bit different. Our behavioral styles are all a little bit different. And there are other ways that we might want to engage. And I've got 4 ways for you. Music is just one of those. Just one of those ways that we can do it. On your tables is a card. And this is your card to take away. For those of you that have been here for two days already, you can start writing stuff in here about what you will commit to do. Up to 10 different things. Why is there 10 on the card, everybody? Because that's what fits, thank you. So you don't have to have 10. You might only have 5 or 4 or 3. If you've got 20, come and see me afterwards. I've got more cards, all right? So I've used a card exactly like this before. What I've done with it, I've written on the things that I wanted to do, and I've pinned it to the wall by my desk. And I look at it daily, and I kind of tick them off as, this is the massive action that I'm going to take. But, maybe that's not you. What about this? This might be you. This is the get list. This is the get list. And maybe this kind of thing is more your thing. Where you use basically a pad with various different things in there like that. What about a wristband? A wristband to motivate us. That wristband says, how will I feel in 30 minutes? And it helps us keep focused on what it is that we're trying to achieve in life. And maybe that's what will motivate you. Big in BNI at the moment is 4DX. And 4DX is amazing. It's a way of turning all those plans and action plans that we've got, and those dreams and those wishes into what we want it to be. Because we're really good at making plans, taking action, but not necessarily delivering. 4DX is really good for that. I think this is about 9 years ago now. You'll see by the old branding on there. This gentleman, Terry Hamley, is the National Director for Portugal. But when I joined the Executive Director team in the UK, he was also the Executive Director for Merseyside. And he did this amazing presentation called The Dreaming Room. And some of you may have seen it. He kind of does it various different places. And Terry created a trifold card. And I really wish I'd kept mine, but I did ask around, and some of the people in the UK have still got their trifold cards. So what I decided to do, as my gift to you guys today, is create my own version of it. And you've also got that in front of you. So this might be the thing. Maybe you don't like the other things I've spoken about. You're not going to do the soundtrack. You're not going to do the massive action card. Maybe you might do this, because this will store in your wallet or your purse. And there's various sections on it. On the bottom, you've got the tracks that I played. The first section is your health, because your health is your number one priority. Absolute number one priority. If you're not healthy, you can't help other people, including your family. So there's space on there to write in 3 things that you're going to commit over the next 12 months to improve your health, whatever that may be. Or, if you're like super duper healthy right now, because you might be, you can write in 3 things that you're going to do to enjoy your health. I don't mind. Or you can ignore that bit altogether. Or you can cross out my heading and write a heading in that you like. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about me, this is about you, isn't it? And whatever works for you is really important. Also on there, I've got a section that says family. Now for some people, family is not that important to them. They don't care about their family. For some people. So I've just put in brackets why. So what's your purpose? What's your why? I've titled it family, but it could be something else. What are you going to do that gets you closer to your purpose, your legacy, whatever you want to call it? And then the last section over the other side is what 3 things are you going to commit to improve your business? Because your business is the driver for everything on the card, for your purpose, for your vision, for your legacy, and all that. That's on the red side of the card. Now, as we go through the rest of today, but also thinking about yesterday, music was still quite a big part of what we were doing. And you can create, as I said earlier, a soundtrack to these 3 days. 2 days, 1 day, whatever your participation was, that keeps you motivated and inspired. Take the kind of action that you're thinking right now you're going to take. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes. How long am I going to give you? No, a couple of minutes and 11 seconds. to take a look at the cards and to write something on them, to make a start with something on them. And while you do that, of course, we're going to listen to a little bit of music. Okay, time's up. What? Also on the card, if you turn over to the grey side, there's an opportunity there to writing your accountability buddy. This might be another way that you can keep the motivation and inspiration going, is to have an accountability buddy. And this one's mine. We have a meeting that we call Jaguar. It's very cleverly named by Jules and Greg. We're just waiting for the others to turn up. And the thing about an accountability buddy is, you two said it, we get to carry each other. It's not an obligation, it's a privilege that Noel highlighted in one of the first tracks. We get to carry each other. We should be proud of that. So on the grey side, that's the accountability buddy, but also when you're going to meet first. So by the end of today, I would like everyone to have secured an accountability buddy, or maybe you've already got one, and put that in. You've also got space on the grey side to write in the soundtrack to your life. What I would say is, don't rush that, because I've done mine and I'm already trying to change a few of them. So, like I say, you might have one that's nailed on, but you might have others you want to add in later on, and you do end up tweaking it quite a bit. All right, there's the soundtrack. Of course, BNI's core values are also very focused on achieving what we want to achieve. I could put a case for any of these to say it will keep us focused on making sure we do what we say we're going to do, which as a value is really important. So here's to my last little bit on Noel, and possibly the part that really got me as to why music is so inspirational and how it can bring us through our lives. It also gives you another insight into why Noel decided to become a vet.
In the end, I didn't care about the punches and the kicks and the pulling up my underpants and everything on the last year. I didn't care about any of the physical violence, being thrown in the quarry, bullet bruises, and my bike being broken up. What I cared about was the only thing that mattered to me, and they found out what that was. And that was my copybook. And they poured milk over it. They destroyed nothing that mattered to me, and that was the creation of my thoughts, I guess, my physical form. I realized at that moment that I ought not to get attached to anything physical, and the only thing that I could impart was something that could be felt. And if I do anything in my life, maybe I can make people realize that in that moment of beauty that you share with anyone that doesn't judge you, you don't need a copybook, and it doesn't matter who hits you in the face, because that love transcends all of that.
Noel's copybook contained his stories, his childhood stories of a character called Vet Man. And Vet Man was incredible. Vet Man could fit rocket boosters to tortoises so they could fly. Vet Man could fix everybody. And slightly worryingly, Noel does admit to this, Vet Man married all the animals. His words, not mine. But you can see, we often draw motivation from what happens to us in life, And the title of this talk is When All Is Said and Done. It's a phrase that I've used in every conference speech I've ever done. And the full phrase is this: when all is said and done, more is said than done. So however you choose to be inspired, be the one who does. Thank you.